taking 1 minus 0.07, right, equals 0.93, because we want to know how many hours are left, not how many hours they're going to use. Does that make sense for everybody?
I have one little question.
Yes, ma'am.
What about the people who choose never to take time off but then get their PTO paid out?
That goes against your dollars, but you have to manage, you're going to have extra FTEs you didn't anticipate in the budget. Now that's where, to his point, if you have a cadre of, if you're expecting to use overtime to fill that additional, or you have a cadre of part-time people, you're going to use less of either overtime or part-time people because they didn't take the time. But here's the reverse of that. If you don't assume everybody's going to take max, and then they do, you're not going to have enough FTEs and bodies to cover it, and your overtime costs are going to shoot through the roof. And/or you're going to be doing what that's causing us a problem right now. Asking for travelers.
Oh, why is that an issue right now?
Because it's a huge cost. Aggregately, for both sides of the equation, it's to the tune of almost $50 million a year cost.
Is it a bigger problem right
There's
now
your
than it
raise
was
right there.
before?
Well, here's the problem fundamentally with travelers, is the bill rate that we pay for travelers, fundamentally, is what it is. As opposed to the differential of overtime and SOS and everything else. It's a lot higher.
Are we seeing any
Just the
differences yet?
travelers and expense. No, not for Palmetto, for Greenville and Palmetto.
Okay.
Both sides of the
Are we
equation.
seeing any differences yet in how travelers are being hired now?
What do you mean?
Like the new
That's how we start
plan that they have to be at least 100
Yes,
miles and
we're not having any problem attracting travelers.
No, I haven't had any problem. It's actually better than it used to be.
Yes, it is actually better. We kind of anticipated it would be. And the reason we did that was we come together. We do not want a traveler in Greenville that lives in Greenville coming down here to work, and they could work for Greenville and vice versa. All right, so everybody got this? Okay. So let me change, let me show you the comparable, okay? Let me change this back to 7% to show you kind of what this does at first. So 7. At 7%, we need 39.6 FTEs to run this. Now, is that just direct care providers in our environment, or who else does that include? Everybody. Remember I said there's a difference between a bottom-up versus a top-down approach to budgeting? This is inclusive of your overhead. Sorry guys, but we're all overhead. All right? It's inclusive of your managers, it's inclusive of anybody that's salaried that does not vary with the number of patients you have. Okay? It's just the choice in how we do this. Okay? So what happens if I didn't assume, to Jacelyn's point, what happens if everybody didn't take their time, or I didn't factor in time? Let's say that I didn't account for PTO, okay? And we set PTO, and I can't do it by 0 because it's going to cause problems. I'm going to say, and that's a functional equivalent of 0 statistically, okay? Watch what happens to the required number of FTEs. We've undervalued, we're going to underhire, we're not going to have enough hours overall to cover what has to happen for our patients. You're down by at least 3 FTEs, which is about almost 7,000 hours of time equivalent, right? So you got to make sure that's right, okay? So does that make sense so far? All right, so we need to know the required number of FTEs, okay? And let's see. I'm fixing something right quick, bear with me. Let me check the difference between right. Okay. Do it for themselves. Put the formula back in here so I do it right. I don't know how I explain it. Okay, that's Okay. So, number one, how do we get to budgeted hours per day? That's the number of hours allocated to you, divided by 365, right? Based on, and remember I talked about the rounding error? What did we actually come up with when we dumb it down to 18? What the budget grid says. I'm going to do something real quick and then change it back. Right here, the average daily census is 18.39, which tells me I need 76,600 hours, right? What happens when I change that to 18? Nothing. Bear with me. I'm going to do this a little bit differently. What it does is it changes what we said there to 74,000.
Oh, that's right, it changes your annual work hours.
Yeah. Changes your required hours. What happened to my hours per day allowed? It went down from 209 to 204, right? That's very important because in this budget, the number of FTEs required is calculated on the actual of 18.39. The number of hours is calculated on the round down of 18. So you're getting this many FTEs for 76,000 hours of time, but you're only allowed to use 74,800 hours of time. So that may or may not be okay. Because, like I said, this is a declining department in terms of volume, so they have the ability to absorb that decline in hours because they don't need them all, fundamentally, right? Your growth department, that could become a problem. So pay attention to that when your budgets are given to you and question that, to be sure you're right. I know you got a question.
I'm not, well, I'm just thinking,
Okay?
when they're talking about the 25th percentile, us
Okay.
being at the 25th percentile, is that what taking that,
No.
oh, all right.
25th percentile is a whole
Takes that.
different thing. So let's do this to show you kind of percentiles. We'll use this one, and we're going to assume that 11.409 is at the 50th percentile.
Okay.
Okay? So when you look here, this is 0 percentile, 150. Okay? So 0 would be 0, 11.409 would be that, and 100th percentile would be roughly double that, or 22.9. So 75th percentile would be somewhere around whatever. 25th percentile would be somewhere around 8, whatever. That's how quartiles and percentiles are done.
Okay.
Now you got to understand, when they move these numbers around, there is assumptions about efficiency. Remember I talked about cycle time and our ability to say, because when you use 76,000 hours, or whatever that number is, the assumption is that you've made everything about how you use those hours in terms of throughput of task and throughput of patients relative to task as efficient as possible. So there are units and there are hospitals that can run this number because they've done everything they can to reduce variability and they can use less hours because of that. What this implies, as you go up and down this, really what this implies is this. Efficiency.
Oh, wow, okay.
Okay? Don't read my handwriting, there's a reason why I don't write on one.
So the 25th percentile is a push for us.
It's a push for us to make sure that we're as efficient as possible because this is part of the way we bend the curve. Okay? And if there is legitimately slack in our efficiency processes that we can get out, we should. So comparably in the ambulance world, in a high-performance ambulance system, I expected my units to be dispatched to a call, assess and treat a patient on scene, put them in the ambulance, treat them on the way to the hospital, get them to the hospital, get them off the ambulance, get the ambulance ready to go, and get it back out on the street in 1 hour or less. And that's everything from a stub toe to a cardiac arrest on average.
And this is really why.
But from an efficiency standpoint, the less efficient you are, the more hours you have to use to accomplish the same task, which translates to additional dollars that wouldn't have otherwise been spent, which translates to exactly what we're seeing in our financials right now.
Okay,
Okay?
got it. The
So
light's dawning, the sun is.
that's our job as unit leaders and CEOs of, because you're really the business owner of your unit, okay? Just like when I run my woodworking business goes where I go. It's either profitable because I make it profitable, or it's not, okay? And it's the same concept here because it's part of that sustainability piece for us as an organization and an ongoing factor. This is a great organization, but if we don't make money to sustain the organization and we don't do everything we can to optimize the efficiency in balance with what? Care, employee engagement, employee safety, patient safety, and patient satisfaction, and all in balance. Because what I'm saying in here is people that do this and do it well still have high HCAHPS, they still have high retention rates, they still have high employee engagement, and they still have high quality of care and low safety error rates. Because they figured these things out. So if we move up and down this chain, really what we're saying is that we believe we've become better at what we do. So we can then improve that contribution margin to then reinvest it in us, in part. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so let me fix all of this, so we get back to where we were.
Makes sense, that's the best I can.
Line 18, we'll change that back to 18.3. 17.5. Okay, so we know how many FTEs we need overall for the year. We need 39.6 for this unit, okay? So what's our next step in this? We got to figure out how to distribute those FTEs to actually work for us, based on what's going on the units on a daily basis, right? So that's where the demand comes into play, okay? Before we do anything else, or actually, no, let me tell you how many shifts we need overall, okay? Overall, we need to figure out how to divide those FTEs, okay, into number of actual shifts. So on this unit, I'm allocated, based on all of this up here, 209 hours, okay? So on your budget grids, wherever you're budgeted at, look at your targeted hours. What's your predominant shift length? 12 hours. So you divide your targeted hours by 12. And that gives you, in this case of Ninth Ortho, it gives me 17.5 person shifts per day that I need to fill, on average.
So Steve,
Yes,
I'm sorry, so
Okay.
where did targeted hours come from?
That is what is set on your budget, based on, have you got yours up?
The staffing grid?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Staffing grid?
Yeah, off your staffing grid, so what's your agency?
27.
Okay, so go up to 27, wherever you're at.
Well,
There you go.
actually just-
So what it is this is your target of 277. That's based on your ADC times your work standard, or you divide it by 365. Or your total number of hours per year divided by 365. Gives you your number of hours per day. Okay? So when you divide 277 by 12, you should come up with the number of shifts on average you need to fill in 24 hours to accomplish the task. Yes, ma'am.
This is all.
I'm gonna have to have the right staffing.
Yeah, they're targeted at 209.86. And then you divide that by 12, and you're going to get 17.5 shifts per day. Yes. Okay, so what does 17.5 shifts in this case tell me? Or whatever your number is. Does it tell you truly what the distribution of those shifts are? Is that all nurses? Is that all techs? Is it a combination? What is it? It's going to be a combination, right? Does that include y'all? In some days, yes. Yep. Are you worth a whole shift when you work? How much of a shift are you work when you work?
5.71
Well, that's how many hours.
hours. I
Convert
have
that.
0.5 for 1 hour.
So you work how many hours a day is expected Monday through Friday? 8. So you divide 8 by 12, you get 0.667. So you're worth, when you work, 0.67 shifts. And you'll see that down here in the actual grid here in a minute. Okay? So we need to, what's that? What's that? Okay? What you got?
Oh, no, I'm saying they
Oh, I know, we work functionally, we work more than that, but from a budget standpoint, it's assumed that we come in at 8, we go home at 5:30. We all know that.
So if I'm divided between,
Yes,
if
ma'am.
I'm divided between between two units and I'm a 0.5 on each, that's gonna, my number will be
Yeah,
different.
you're functionally gonna be 4 for each unit,
Okay.
is how you would do that, yeah.
So
So you divide your time functionally and equally between the 2 units, so 4 hours here, 4 hours there, so you'd be a 0.5 shift for each
Oh,
unit
okay.
on the days
All
you
right,
work,
so
Monday through
4
Friday.
hours.
And I'll show you that in the grid here in a second.
Okay.
Okay? So we know how many person shifts we need to fill per day, okay, on average. But we're going to, in ninth ortho, we're going to assume that we have a very variable per day daily census, okay? So this is where we now start building the actual grid. Okay, we start, remember I run my historical demand, and I determined that on Sundays, and I've made these numbers match the 76,000 a little bit, but I've determined that on average, I've got 9.1 patients per day on Sunday, 18.42 on Monday, 22 and so on, right? So you put all of your average daily censuses in for each day of the week, okay? And then you're going to start applying shifts to this, okay, for each day of the week. We know on this unit that we have a secretary every day of the week, for day and night. Why do I have the unit secretaries up under fixed staffing? So this is divided into fixed and variable staffing. Why do I have the unit secretary up here under fixed?
Because they're always there regardless.
Regardless of patient volume, you're going to get one secretary, okay? Regardless of patient volume, you're going to get however many A&Ms you got. Admit discharge nurse, used, so on and so forth. So we are fixed cost. We don't vary with the number of patients on the unit. The nurses and the techs do vary based on the number of patients. So if you've got 5 patients, you need 1 nurse. If you've got 25 patients, you need 5 nurses, right? So they're variable costs. So the budgeted hours per day comes from what's up above. And these are all so that you can make sure you hit what you need to once you build this grid, okay? So we're going to start walking through this, okay? We're going to start on a Sunday. Make sure about some calculations here. There we go. And we're going to build first the nurse managers and the charge nurses. We'll take all this out. Okay, and you'll see everything start to change. Okay? So, on Sunday, do we have a nurse manager?
No.
Y'all work on, y'all want to work on something? No, I'm going late. I don't know about y'all. From home. I don't even work from home on Sunday. Monday, we got nurse manager?
Yes.
All right, so how many hours do they work?
0.67.
Okay, so if your hours, and think about this, if your hours changed, if they did put you to a 12, you could accommodate that or put it to a 9 by changing that. So actually what you can do is, to do this right, you can do equals 8 divided by 12, you get a 0.67, right? So how many days a week does a nurse manager work? In theory, not in reality, in theory.
Monday through Friday.
Monday through Friday. Okay. So we put Monday through Friday there. Now notice down here what it's doing is it's recalculating the actual number of shifts. What's our target per day on average? 17.5, right? So what we're doing fundamentally is building the same staffing grid that you've got. What are we doing though? You're varying it based on your actual daily census so that you can build a better mousetrap. Okay? Do we have an A&M on this unit? No. She gave her A&M up for an admit discharge nurse. Okay? We got an admit discharge nurse on the sheet. Yeah, she did. Happened a long time ago.
Oh, thank you, I appreciate
Do we have an admit discharge nurse? What do we know from our demand data? We need more during the day. Where do we need it the most relative to volume and admission and discharges? During the week, because of the volume. Okay? So my point in that is, you could pick and choose where you put your admit discharge nurse if you have one, or however you're doing this. Because if this unit were reversed and they were really heavy on Sundays and Saturdays and whatever it is, that may be where you place that. The goal is still in the end to get to an average of 17.5 shifts per day. Okay, how long does the admit discharge nurse work? 8 hours. They work 12, they work 1. Okay, so 8 divided by 12, 167, they're working Monday through Friday. Okay, now we're up to 1.3 shifts here, right? Actual hours per day, 16, 2 8-hour shifts. We got a unit secretary during the day? Every day? What about at night? Okay? Every day of the week? Okay? There we
What
go.
if you only have a unit secretary until 11?
Till 11?
Two 8-hour shifts, no 11 to 7.
All right, so then you would program at day an 8-hour shift and at night an 8-hour shift fundamentally to get it in the budget. How you actually schedule it is up to
Doesn't
you.
matter, so it would stay like that is right
Well, no, it would not, because this is assuming full 12 hours.
now.
So you're gonna schedule one, how are you gonna schedule one? So let me, how many hours were you gonna schedule each one?
8 hours.
8 hours, so the same way as the nurse
0.67.
managers,
Okay.
just 7 days a week in
Okay.
this instance. So you would have 0.67 for days all the way across, 0.67 for nights, which constitutes that 8-hour during the day and that 8-hour in the evening, nothing overnight fundamentally. How you actually schedule them becomes your next step beyond this class. Okay? All right. So, we got a charge nurse every day?
Yes.
No. Well, somebody's got to be in charge. So fundamentally, from a budget standpoint, we got a charge nurse, right? Okay? Okay? Charge nurse tonight? Okay, so now we're up to 4 shifts during Sunday and Saturday, 5.3 shifts during the rest of the week. Okay, now we got to put in the RNs. What do we know about this unit from a ratio standpoint? What's the expectation on this med-surg unit? 5 to 1, right? Okay, so how would we get the correct number of nurses in there relative to the ADC for each day?
Average
So we got
down,
9.1 patients on average on Sunday.
divided by 5.
Okay, equals our ADC divided by 5. So we need 1.8 nurses on Sunday day shift. Now, can we get 80% of a nurse physically? We might get in trouble with the law if we start covering people up. So we'll have to figure that out in a minute, and we'll show you that next. All right? So, a quick way to fix this is to how? Do we want to enter that formula for everyone, or do we want to do what? Can we just copy it over? Why not?
No, because every day is different.
Let me show you something. Yes, you can. Watch this. When you copy